All right, and this next one is from Gaming Bolt called "What's Going On with Star Citizen?" Big channel, 1 million subscribers, and yeah, let's see what he has to say. What is going on with Star Citizen? I don't know. I don't play it every day.
Star Citizen's development time has become somewhat of a multifaceted source of humor over the years. Due to the long development cycle, these have had the benefit of not being fully aware of the game's current situation because so much has changed and yet still extremely fitting for the same. It's a paradox, it's a conundrum, almost like Star Citizen. But all jokes aside, Cloud Imperium Games' space sim is a fascinating study. It began with the promise of being a space sim unlike any other, a massively multiplayer online game where players could explore the universe, indulge in trading and piracy, and much more. With Chris Roberts of Wing Commander and Freelancer fame at the helm, it truly seemed like the space sim of many a genre fan's dreams. Star Citizen began production in 2011 and subsequently launched a Kickstarter campaign in October 2012, initially amassing over $2 million. Nearly 10 years later, crowdfunding for the game, which is now done through the sale of in-game ships, has exceeded over $444 million. The total number of Star Citizens is over 3.6 million, but controversies have cropped up again and again. There's a decently sized portion of the community that's satisfied with what the game has provided, even if there's a ways to go yet. But the question remains, what exactly is the deal with Star Citizen? Why is it so controversial, and what's currently going on with it? To answer that, we'd have to go back to the beginning. After its Kickstarter campaign concluded, Cloud Imperium committed to releasing Star Citizen in 2014, along with the Persistent Universe, which was the massively multiple online component. It would also release a cinematic single-player title called Squadron 42. The latter was developed by Foundry 42 under the supervision of Aaron Roberts, Chris's brother who previously worked on Starlancer. With space combat and first-person shooter elements, not to mention a star-studded cast that include Mark Hamill, Gary Oldman, and Gillian Anderson, the scale of Squadron 42 was set very high. It's also apparently going to have 70 missions for over 20 hours of gameplay, and this is only episode 1. Subsequent episodes would be coming later. From 2013 onwards, Cloud Imperium began releasing parts of the game that
I hope it has more than 20 hours of gameplay for 10 years. What's that, 2 hours a year?
Later came to be known as modules. Hangar Module was the first, but it was Arena Commander in June of 2014 that attracted the most attention. It offered ship combat and racing, though most had to play against the AI. Then there's Star Marine, a first-person shooter module that promised multiplayer modes and zero-G. However, due to development woes, it would eventually release in 2016 and offered only 2 modes.
And is the biggest meme of all time.
Last Stand and Elimination, along with 2 maps at release. Even throughout its initial years, Star Citizen saw its share of delays from numerous features, including Squadron 42, which we'll come back to. It wasn't long before some players started asking for refunds, and while they would receive the same, Cloud Imperium would change its terms of service to prevent any further demands of the same. Now, refunds would only be granted if the project was abandoned, which hasn't happened, contrary to popular belief. However, in December of 2015, the biggest and most significant module, finally, the Persistent Universe. Leveraging the existing modules, players could finally explore the system, walking across 4 different planets and 9 different moons. Zero-G movement, a law system that would track criminal behavior among other players, procedurally generated biomes on planets, it was all available at last, with its share of technical and performance issues. Sure, it was rough, but for many that had been along for the ride and poured significant amounts of money either through crowdfunding or purchasing in-game ships, it was a long time coming.
It was a long time coming, and it showed the potential. Yeah.
Now, this isn't to say that the controversies suddenly ceased, however.
It made it feel
before
like
the
it could be
Persistent
possible.
Universe launch, anonymous and unnamed employees at Cloud Imperium spoke to The Escapist about development troubles. a toxic work environment, racism, and concerns over the project's massive scale were only some of the concerns that some had faced, with plenty of criticism levied at Chris Roberts himself. At the end of the day, Roberts officially stated that there was a, quote, very strong vision for Star Citizen, and he had no doubt about what could be achieved. Another major hurdle came from Crytek, which filed a lawsuit in 2017. It alleged that Cloud Imperium had used and modified CryEngine without its consent. In December 2017, Star Citizen was announced to be migrating over to the Amazon Lumberyard. The continued use of CryEngine, even with this fact, was one of the complaints included in the lawsuit. As it turns out, however, Crytek provided the rights to CryEngine for use in Lumberyard as far back as 2016 to Amazon. The lawsuit was to be dismissed with $500,000 in legal expenses paid by Crytek, but in February 2020, the two parties filed for a joint dismissal of the same, with a settlement being reached. The persistent universe continued growing through the years, becoming more stable and receiving some more features. Roadmap changes and delays became commonplace.
This was the original demo of what we thought the game would have been. This was when you would jump down to a planet and it would be a cutscene and basically a loading screen and no loading screen. When they went away from this, the time that it was going to take for Star Citizen to finish went from a long time to forever, possibly, right? We have no idea. And this is when it all changed.
Map changes and delays became commonplace. In-game ships cost thousands of real money and continue to be a strong source of funding for development. An attempt to monetize the live stream for CitizenCon was met with significant backlash. Pay-to-win concerns arose following the removal of caps for United Earth credits in August of 2018, because this being an MMOG, trade can be affected by such moves. Roberts would dismiss these concerns, noting that there was no specific win state and that, quote, you win by having fun, and having fun is different things to different people. It isn't some race to the top. It's not like Highlander where there can be only one. It's an open-ended, persistent universe sandbox that doesn't have an end game or a specific win state. In that same year, one backer tried suing Cloud Imperium, having supported the game since 2012 and wanting their money back. Due to the changes in the terms of service, however, he would subsequently lose the lawsuit. In 2019, another report came out from Forbes which talked about mismanagement, specifically about Roberts micromanaging things to an insane degree. Mark Day, a producer whose company was contracted to work on Star Citizen in 2013 and 2014, said, quote, as the money rolled in, what I consider to be some of Roberts' old bad habits popped up. Not being super focused. It had gotten out of hand, in my opinion. The promises being made, call it feature creep, call it whatever it is. Now we can do this, now we can do that. I was shocked.
That still happens.
One of the senior graphics engineers reportedly spent months at the behest of Roberts, simply trying to nail the visuals of a ship's shields. David Jennison, who served as lead character artist before quitting in 2015, reportedly worked only on 5 characters in 17 months.
And by the way, like, yes, the shields are better, but is it something that you even notice anymore? Or is it just like a thing? Is all that time being spent on that good? And do you not notice it anymore because it's so good? Like, those are the things that I wonder sometimes about, like, the visuals of SC. It all seems to come together and make this thing amazing, but we also take for granted so much of it that I wonder if spending so much time on it is worth it.
He noted that Roberts would often change approvals on characters, but more importantly, quote, all the decisions for the character pipeline and approach had been made by Roberts. It became clear that this was a company-wide pattern. CR dictates all. In March 2020, Cloud Imperium Games announced a change to its roadmap format. It noted that, quote, when we first embarked on this roadmap journey 2 years ago, our goal was to make communication more transparent, specific, and insightful for all of you who helped make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. While this goal remains unchanged, we found that the format in which we've attempted to visualize our progress linearly does not match the approach we're taking in the development of Squadron 42.
Because they don't do anything
It noted
literally.
that the roadmap does not and cannot accurately represent development on a AAA chapter-based story-driven game like Squadron 42. So it sought to go back to the drawing board, creating something more in line with our internal scheduling. Development progress would be shared in other ways, but the idea was to offer more regular updates on Squadron 42. By this point, a beta was planned for Q2 of 2020. It would be delayed to Q3 2020 before Roberts declared in December of 2020 that no gameplay would be showcased nor a release date discussed, quote, until we are closer to the home stretch and have high confidence in the remaining time needed to finish the game to the quality we want. As you might imagine, many fans weren't happy with this.
No, it's insane.
Another incident occurred in February 2021. Texas had faced several power troubles due to heavy snowstorms, which led to days of no electricity, not to mention food
Wasn't
and
this
water
said to be
shortages on
complete
top.
BS? And
Many
all
studios
of the
based
people
in
who
the
work
state
there
had chosen to shut down. However, sources speaking to Kotaku revealed that Cloud Imperium expected employees to work through it at the studio, assuming, quote, roads are clear, or make up for it later, taking the time out of their vacation. On the surface, however, the company said that its staff, quote, safety and well-being are a priority to us at all times, and reportedly offered flexible working hours. However, the behind-the-scenes
CIG is known for like being one of the, like, they don't do crunch or anything, I don't think. Like, they're known for actually, like, if there's one thing that you can't be, like, obnoxious about them, is that they don't force employees to do all this stuff that other companies do and have given, like, yeah, like that article was, I'm pretty sure, debunked by everybody that worked at the Austin studio, and like we know a lot of those people.
message was to figure something out
BS.
come what may. One source said, quote, in response to further expressions of concern, we were told to work directly with our managers for help, yet managers were facing the same crisis as the rest of us, and some lacked any method of communication for days. Another source added, I think people are just tired of how this company can be. It's just about the money and not about their employees. They don't really show they care when it matters most, and they have failed with this time and time again.
This is made up.
In February 2022, Cloud Imperium would announce plans to significantly reduce the release view of its progress tracker. This is because many features listed beyond the most immediate update would tend to slip to later dates or abandoned altogether. Again, every time this happened, there was criticism because the project is almost 10 years in development at this point and still not quite there yet. Cloud Imperium stated that the current state of the release view put too much attention on features that had a high probability of shifting around. It had become abundantly clear to us that despite our best efforts to communicate the fluidity of development and how features marked as tentative should sincerely not be relied on, the general focus of many of our most passionate players has continued to lead them to interpret anything on the release view as promised. While it acknowledged that not everyone saw it the same way, quote, there still remains a very loud contingent of roadmap watchers who see projections and promises, and their continued noise every time we shift to deliverables has become a distraction both internally at CIG and within our community, as well as to prospective Star Citizen fans watching from the sidelines at our open development communications. So going forward, anything beyond patches coming in the next quarter was removed. So, back to the original question, what is going on with Star Citizen? According to the release view, patch 3.17 has a tentative Q1 2022 release date with new locations like Lorville Hospital and Space Station clinics, AI vendor behavior for the coffee shop in Area 18, and the addition of selling items to shops, ship-to-ship refueling, and mining gadgets. Rivers will also be deployed within the persistent universe. The last major update, released on December 23, 2021, saw a new dynamic event, Jump Town 2.0, added to the persistent universe, along with a rework of Gravlev physics and improvements to the Dying Star map, with new areas, cover options, and assets added.
Get to the point.
And yes, in both cases, new ships are also included. It's hard to predict where Star Citizen goes from here. It's endured through nearly a decade's worth of rough development, controversies, major events, and seemingly
It's easy to predict. It just keeps going.
When it will be fully done is hard to say, but it remains an anomaly in the games industry.
For sure.
A project unlike any other that still promises to be the ultimate something, one update and several millions of dollars at a time. Regardless, it's there, and you're either out of the way or too deeply in. And that brings us to the end of this video. A quick request before we conclude: we upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing.
I don't know, maybe I would if you did a little bit more research, but yeah. All these channels that like pump out videos every day, they don't have time to do that kind of stuff. That you could tell that just some of the articles were poorly researched on their own, and then you get this loop of poorly researched article is referenced in poorly researched YouTube video you know, and then they just keep going around, and then everybody it's like telephone, man. It actually ends up not being as informative as it should be. So I thought that video was good. I think there was a couple points where it was just like, oh yeah, you were wrong, but that's okay. It just highlighted, hey, Star Citizen is an anomaly. That's kind of the point, and it absolutely is. And I hope it eventually becomes a game. We'll have to see. We'll just have to see.